Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana. Thanks for tuning in today. Well, Financial Issues is a ministry that educates people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. We hope that you're a partner with us. If you were, hopefully you tuned into the partner conference call yesterday. If not, that partner conference call will be posted up on the website for a few weeks. So if you missed it, tune in and listen. For just $132 a year, you can partner with us to help fund the work of Financial Issues and get in on our biblically responsible investment strategy. And if you've ever wanted to tie up all the wisdom that you learn from Financial Issues and put a little bow on it, you can now do that. You can gift a partnership to someone that you love for just $99 if you do it during the month of December. So go to our website, financialissues.org, and you'll be able to see just how to get all of that done. Well, on today's show, we're going to do a requested topic from one of our listeners about DOGE and the government overhaul. We're also going to get to some of the questions that you guys have been sending in. So let's get started right off the bat with Pete from Seattle. Pete was saying, hello again, Shana. I'd love to hear you and Jason discuss Musk, Ramaswamy, DOGE, and the ways that the Trump administration plans to attack cutting the size, scope, and cost of government, plus avenues that they may not have broached yet. You had to cut your very interesting discussion on this topic short yesterday. This was actually a couple weeks ago now, which was kind of a bummer. He said the topic could easily consume multiple show segments without boring your audience. So, Pete, thank you for that. You know, I think somebody's given Pete a copy of our show notes because that's exactly what Jason and I talked about after we did get cut short on our topic. So I've invited Jason back to the show today, and we're going to tackle this topic. So Jason, thanks for coming back, and thanks for being here and responding to the request of our faithful listeners. I kind of wanted to start off with an article, a little piece of information that we found. In the first 2 months of fiscal year 2024, the federal government has run up a deficit of $622 billion, according to the U.S. budget, Congressional Budget Office. So, you know, what's $622 billion when we're talking trillions, right? Well, it's a lot when you consider that it's just 2 months of the year, and that equates to a $3.7 trillion deficit projected over the next year if the Biden administration would be allowed to continue through the rest of the year. Thank the Lord that will not happen. Our the government's fiscal year runs from October 1st through September 30th, meaning that Biden only gets to write checks until January 20th, and DOGE is already hard at work. A recent Auburn University study says that every single government regulator employed destroys 158 private sector jobs every year that you keep him on the job. One economist implies that $100,000 bureaucrat destroys $16.5 million of economic output. And we've got somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000 of them on the payrolls. So, Jason, talk a little bit about who can actually get pink slips from the president and lay out the DOGE roadmap.
Yeah, let's get into it again. So for review from the last time you and I spoke about this, how does DOGE get its authority, or at least how are they going to be effective? Well, that's going to be through the executive branch of the federal government. And that is backed by the Constitution, where President Trump will have the power to cut these agencies. So a lot of the bloat of our government is 98% in the executive branch. So as I mentioned last time, it's simple. You swap out your guy, you get a lot of control with your guy in, whoever it is. So it seems like that whole separations of powers isn't as effective that way. So having DOGE here is going to be great because they give us a roadmap. And that's what's really important. I want to know where there's a bookend to it. They have a goal that they want to finish. And they want to be done by July of 2026, July 4th. So they want to have a celebration of Independence Day after hopefully being as efficient as possible and meeting some goals. So I like that.
And right before the midterms, by the way.
Yeah, perfect timing. So they're going to start with working with an actual legal team and the Office of Management and Budget to identify just the federal budget for each agency, but then also the workers that are in it. So they're just going to get an accounting of headcounts or, budget and people that are there. But they also want to uncover all the list of thousands of regulations across the government so that he knows that they exist. So then he has the power to basically eliminate them. So that's where Trump's going to be able to, he's delegating it basically.
So you mean they're actually going to force them to do performance reviews and job reviews and look at whether or not they're paying people who are actually working or not?
Yeah, and where they're working too, right? So another area
like a corporate thing. Sure, we should be doing this in the government.
We'll see how it all pans out. I know they're getting prepared for the legal battle that they're going to have, so they're trying to do it in a way that they know they have power and to prevent that legal object getting in the way of saying, hey, no, we're going to stand up against this. So looking at the minimum number of employees is what DOGE is going to look at for each of these agencies, their core functions, and then just see how many people it actually takes to actually run this agency. So there's just bloat inside of that. And that's what Musk has done with X, and by other people's opinions, I guess you could say that's been pretty successful that way. So what they're going to look at is the head counts, and then they're going to add incentives. They don't want to necessarily sit out here and just fire everybody. They want to have severance packages. They want to look at the issue of empty federal buildings. So with the move to work from home, which I'm a pro work from home advocate, I'm okay with that. But
not everybody works from home.
Yeah, not everyone works from home or can in that sense. But
or does.
If that's what they're going to do, you have an empty building now that taxpayers are paying for. So I'm totally fine with the work from home advocate, but also looking at who doesn't need to actually be there. So having these empty buildings that the federal government has just becomes what the taxpayers are really dumping money into. It's not the people that are actually working for these agencies. It's the leftover empty buildings not being used. That's just draining. So there's some examples. Federal government agencies are using it on average just 12% of their actual space in the DC headquarters. So an example of that, specifically Department of Agriculture has a space for more than 7,400 people, but only 456 workers each day actually work there. That's 6% occupancy. This is DOGE posting this information with sources, which I've looked up some of the sources. If anyone's looking at this on X, you can follow DOGE and look at all of their posts and their sources. So read those sources. It's really good. I'm a big source person of, hey, where are they getting this information? So another one is the Social Security Administration staffing union. So there's a union that actually staffs the people that works with the Social Security Administration. And they've recently just inked a deal that with Biden administration specifically that will allow them or 42,000 employees to actually work from home through 2029. So this automatically means that we know that there's a vast amount of people in that agency alone that can actually hopefully answer phones instead of waiting on the long, national hotline that they are doing right now. The amount of people that are calling in, which is good. That's fine. But now we have empty buildings. And in this case, also, they're trying right now to kind of sort of keep that building existing. They're still requiring some people to come into the office from 2 to 5 days. So certain people come in for a day. Some people come in for all 5 days. And so it's sort of this inefficient process of keeping this building in play that the Biden administration at least having right now. So that's sort of the plan. But DOGE is looking into that of, hey, let everyone work from home if they're just doing the telecommunication services, and then let's do something with those buildings.
Yeah, I've heard similar statistics. Like only 1% of government workers actually work Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, like 40 hours a week. And, close to like 99% of the buildings are almost empty. So it's really crazy. I'm not sure most people realize how much of their hard-earned tax dollars have funded criminal activity over the last few years, as in the criminal activity I'm talking about is illegals crossing into our borders, crossing up into our borders, getting put up in fancy hotels, given public benefits, etc. So, Jason, we just have a short amount of time left, but share those numbers that you dug up on the cost of illegals.
Illegal immigration, according to 2023, cost taxpayers about $150.7 billion at the federal, state, and local level. So, we talk about the federal government and the local level here. So that, in comparison to other things, look at World War I cost $334 billion. Manhattan Project cost $30 billion. This is costing a lot of money, and this is a net burden to taxpayers, meaning that what the government did is they supplemented this money to the local governments and federal and state, and then they were hoping to tax those illegals to get money back, which I still don't really understand, but that's what's being reported. And so they were hoping to tax and get money back. So what happens is it's a net loss basically to taxpayers because they're hoping to tax illegals that can't be taxed anyways.
Well, good stuff. I know there's so much more that we could say on this topic, but I hear the lovely Christmas music, so that means that we got to wrap it up for today. So thanks for being here, Jason. Really appreciate your feedback and your contribution to the Ministry of Financial Issues. Well, folks, we hope that you're going to stick around because we're going to be right back to answer more of your questions here at Financial Issues.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I like Crossroads because we play fun activities and we learn about the Word of God.
It's a great way for kids to give their life to Jesus, especially when they don't know who He is.
That's why we're launching our Drive for 5 in 2025 campaign. We are committed to adding 5 more regional coordinators for a total of 11 next year, reaching more kids than ever before.
Please join us for this Drive for 5 in 2025.
Help spread the love of Jesus to children across the country. Go to crossroadskidsclub.com/5 in 2025.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound, and that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. I get caught up there listening to the Christmas music.
It's
I
awesome,
like it. It's different. Yes.
Yep.
Good. So before the break, I had Jason on. I always so much appreciate his input and his his contribution to the show. I think the listeners are liking it too. But we were talking about the cost of taxpayer money, the amount of taxpayer money that has gone to support illegal activity, and I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but I guess there's that would argue that some of the people are not coming here illegally since they're applying for asylum and different technicalities like that. But the fact of the matter is whenever you come into a country without permission, you're violating a law, and that makes you a criminal. And so instead of enforcing the laws that were already on the books, the Biden administration has, sort of welcomed these illegals in with open arms, I guess, hoping that somehow they would help to sway the outcome of this last election. And I'm happy to say that totally backfired for them. And, as we talk about, how much it's costing, and, it's right here in people's communities, not necessarily in my community, but, you look at the stories that are being done about, the amount of immigrants that were strategically deployed to places like Springfield and New York City. And, quite honestly, some of these sanctuary cities are really just attracting, the immigrants there because they say, come here, you can be safe from the federal law, and we'll give you food and we'll give you housing and things like that. And it's kind of a relief in a way to see even the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, kind of changing his tune as his city has been just overwhelmed and bombarded from, the people that are coming into this country illegally. And, there are those that I guess that would say, well, we need them. I've seen some really kind of bad memes or videos on social media saying that if we deport all of these illegal aliens that we're going to have to we're going to have to start cleaning our own toilets and cutting our own grass again and all of these different things. And I'm thinking, wow, how that's very left of you to to be that to be that racist.
Right, exactly.
But so there's those that say that we need them for the labor force and we're going to suffer problems in our economy if we deport these people. But the fact of the matter is a lot of them are getting our tax dollars, and not contributing. They're getting housing, they're getting, food, they're getting medical care. I don't know if any of you have had any experiences in the medical system where you've, had to wait longer on care because of, illegals go into the emergency room. They can't be denied care either. That would be interesting feedback for us to get to. But, one of the things that Jason and I were going to bring up is, my question is, how long do you think these immigrants are really going to hang around once the gravy train is derailed? And, what I mean by that is, with the incoming Trump administration, and if you cut off the benefits, the things, many of them would say that they came here to find the American dream and to go to work and things like that. But, who's going to say no to, oh, come on in, here's this nice hotel room, here's all this money for food, and, you get free this and that, and that may be even better than the American dream that they came here for, where they had to actually work for benefits. Yeah. So it's I'll be really interested to see how DOGE gets involved with all of that. And there's been some recent information that's come out that New York City has reported that their illegals have dropped roughly 60,000 by 60,000 from their expiring debit card and living expense program. So ironically, it was reported that also that 58,000 illegals or convicted felons are facing criminal charges. So, when the benefits expire, when the free money runs out, where are they going to go? Are they maybe they'll just go to another what do you call it?
Another like sanctuary city.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Maybe they'll go to another one where benefits are offered there as well. But so interesting stuff unfolding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shana, we got a good question here from a listener. It doesn't say his name, but it's an anonymous listener on social media from your home state of Texas, actually.
All right.
Question is this: what should a 72-year-old with $500,000 in cash be doing to counter inflation and gain income? I think this is a really good foundational question for us, Shana. What insight would you give this listener?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's all going to depend on, the risk tolerance level of this 72-year-old person with $500,000 in cash.
Yeah.
So, countering inflation and gaining income are kind of two pieces of the puzzle. And we really do address that with our asset allocation models here at Financial Issues. So, we have 8, models that are broken down by age and by risk. And, we think about the things that are important to people in each segment of their investment life cycle. So for someone who is 72, I'm just going to go ahead and make the assumption that they are no longer working, so they're no longer bringing in regular income. I'm also going to make the assumption that they have at least some Social Security, so they have some income. But it sounds to me like they need more income and want to, have identified the risk of inflation as a serious risk to, their future income and want to know how to combat that. So typically, equity investing has been a successful antidote to inflation. So when you think about prices rising, the price that you pay for food, the prices that you pay for services, the prices that you pay for goods, as those go up, who benefits from that? Well, typically it's the prices are going up because companies cost to produce and manufacture or perform services, those services go up as well. So they pass those along to the people that are buying those goods and services. And in turn, they also get to maintain their profits. So the way to counter inflation is to own the companies that are continuing to maintain good profit margins from being a publicly traded company. So equity investing is a piece of that. So you have to have some growth in your portfolio. And the way that you do that is by getting exposure to some stocks. On the flip side of that, the other piece of the puzzle is, how do I gain income? Well, there are investments out there that are more focused on generating income and not so focused on growth. Those things can be CDs, they can be government treasuries, but, inflation, I did a quick little calculation the other day to see what has average inflation been over the last 30 years. Average inflation 30 years has been 3%. Average inflation over the last 4 years has been 4%. So what happens when you have, government treasuries right now are somewhere in the 4 to 4.5%. I would say CDs are somewhere in that neighborhood as well. So if you're investing 100% in those kinds of fixed income investments, you're barely just going to stay up with inflation. You're not going to get ahead of it. So the income piece of a portfolio is addressed by the fixed income that you have in it, whether that's like CDs, it could be some preferreds, it could be some corporate fixed income, different things like that can really help you to provide income in your portfolio. But I think to accomplish both of those goals well, you have to have a properly allocated portfolio. So, for the 72-year-old, I would suggest that you look at one of two portfolios one of two asset allocation models that we put together. One is the income portfolio, and that is going to be more heavily concentrated in the income portion of the puzzle that this listener is asking us about, or the 65 plus. If you have a little bit higher risk tolerance, maybe you want to be a little bit more focused on growth than you are on income. That would be the one that you look at. But look at those two asset allocation models, and watch some videos, learn how having a balanced portfolio can really help accomplish those two goals.
That's great, Shana. Thank you so much for that information. That's good. Lewis is a partner, and he has a couple questions here, Shana. He says, it seems that you recommend we own A shares now. Our Timothy portfolio consists of some old accounts that are in C shares, my IRA, wife's IRA, my wife's Roth, and an individual account. The total value of the portfolio is about $260,000, and we need to figure out what to do with these funds. We plan on pulling some money each year from somewhere, but we don't know where to start. That's his first question, Shana. What do you have for Lewis?
So my first, I guess to address that first part of it is, don't think you need to sell your C shares and buy A shares. That's not a good strategy, because actually your C shares will convert or turn into A shares after you've owned them for 8 years. So the way that share classes work on mutual funds, whether you have C shares, A shares, I don't think anybody has B shares anymore, but there's also I shares that you can that you'll get if you work with a financial advisor, and I do hear that some iShares are available on discount brokerage platforms as well. But it all has to do with the cost structure and how you buy and own mutual fund. So with A shares, you pay an upfront sales charge to get into the mutual fund. You don't pay anything when you go to sell the mutual fund. And then every mutual fund has operating expenses. Those are the internal cost of owning the fund. Now, they're higher on A shares than they are on institutional shares, but their A shares have lower ongoing expenses than C shares. With a C share, it doesn't typically cost you anything to get into the mutual fund or out of the mutual fund as long as you own it for 13 months. But the internal expenses are higher. So it's just a matter of how you want to pay for the shares that you're going to own. So if you already own the C shares, I would just consider hanging on to them and just letting them turn into A shares so that the internal expenses go down, after your 8-year time frame is up.
Awesome, Shana. That's great stuff. Thank you. And then just a little bit of info for Lewis. I don't know if you wanted to just consider this as well, but their finances are good. They're not rich by any means, but the portfolio with financial issues is doing good, about $150,000 in that. No debt. They own our home. 401k with work is almost $1 million. So it definitely seems like they're in a pretty good situation there. Mm-hmm. Lewis is.
Okay, so I guess they're kind of asking, sounds like they're asking, how should they go about managing all of these different things in different places? Sounds like you've got, money in your 401k, you've got money in a financial issues strategy, you've got some money in the Timothy portfolio. To me, the first place that I would start would be to combine all of these funds together that you're going to be using for the same purpose, like retirement. Get them put onto your portfolio tracker, and then you're going to see where you need to go from there. I would consider using one strategy, either the fund strategy or the FISM strategy, and then working from that direction. Well, folks, we got to take a break, but we hope you're going to stick around. There's more.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. I Googled places to abort. We drive there, and as soon as we get there, I open the door, and the first thing that I see is a bunch of Bible verses in the walls. They gave me a little counseling session, they gave me the pregnancy test again, and they do an ultrasound. And that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We decided with my boyfriend at the time, which is now my husband, to continue the pregnancy together. We started coming to the classes, doing our homework, getting counseling together. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Pharrell came to Crossroads as a 4th grader. His name had been brought to my attention by the school principal. She was concerned about the direction he was heading.
I remember I wasn't the best kid. I got into trouble a lot.
He became a very active part of Crossroads Kids Club.
Mr. Engel, he was the leader that really impacted my life in so many ways. I honestly didn't want Crossroads to end.
We would invite all the students to come to our youth group here at Waterfront.
I felt God saying, come home, come to me. It felt like I was set free.
And I'll never forget the day when we had the privilege and the honor to baptize Pharrell.
I hugged Mr. Engel. I don't know if he understands. I'm truly, thankful to have him through the whole journey. If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I wouldn't be a follower of Christ.
Help reach more kids like Pharrell with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back, folks. Good to be here with you. Financial Issues. Hey, I want to remind you, we are coming to the end of this year, so please do consider, if you're looking for a place to make a donation, Financial Issues could be a great place for that. So check that out, financialissues.org. You can click the donate button there. Also, I want to tell you about our friends at Crossroads Kids Club. We've talked about on our show, one of really the darker areas of our country. But there are many folks out there who are trying to reform the education system in the United States. And I have the privilege of speaking to one of them right now on the show here. This is Sherry Few. Sherry is the founder and president of USPI. That's the United States Parents Involved in Education. Sherry, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you on with me today.
All right. Well, thank you, Seth. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And would you just begin by reminding our listeners, who you are and kind of some of the work that you're engaged in with USPI?
Okay. So we're a national nonprofit coalition of people, not just parents, but all sorts of American citizens who are fed up with the indoctrination happening in government schools. We expanded into a national organization, started out in my state as South Carolina PI, but expanded nationally about 10 years ago. And we adopted the mission to close the U.S. Department of Education and end all federal education mandates. Now, we chose that as our mission because we understood as activists in our states, I had colleagues all over the country that joined with me to expand. We all understood that the majority of the nefarious pedagogies originate with the federal government and are incentivized with federal dollars. So that's why we adopted that as our mission.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I heard about your organization, Sherry, I was delighted to just hear, because listen, the Department of Education is very problematic, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But before we do, let me just ask you this: how does your organization actually equip parents as well as other individuals to really be involved and engaged in their children's education? How do you guys fight for freedom in this area?
Well, we have a lot of great resources that we've developed that are on our website. You know, we've got guides for parents about how to navigate their school boards, how to run for school board, how to organize in your community so that you can make a difference, because in numbers you can be obviously more effective. And so we have those resources. We also have a film that we produced titled Truth and Lies in American Education. And it is a great expose of all of the problems that are happening in government schools. And I say all, I guess it's the most egregious things that are happening. You know, the sexualization of children, the critical race theory, the other Marxist theories, anti-American, anti-Christian propaganda. All of these things are covered in our film. And it's a really good starting point for people who need to just get up to speed with what the problems are, because until you don't understand the problems that are there, you're not going to be motivated to get involved. And that's what we need a grassroots army across this country standing up for how our taxpayer dollars are spent and protecting children and our country's freedom. Because even if you're not a parent of school-age children, because a lot of adults tend to tune out on education if they don't have kids in school, but they need to be concerned. They need to be aware, not only is their money funding this indoctrination, but our very freedom in this country is at stake, because they are teaching children to hate themselves, hate one another, and hate our country. We're probably the only country in the world that doesn't teach their children to be patriotic.
Man, it's a scary thing when we think about how tall of an order this is, Sherry, but that's why we're so grateful for organizations like yours who are standing in this fight, understanding the need that our children have to be taught the truth. And so thank you from all of us here for continuing in that fight. You had mentioned some of those resources that you have. I was going to ask you this earlier, but I'll just ask you now. How can our listeners find those? How can they get access to those?
Okay, well, they can go to our website. That's USPI.org. And then we also have a website for a film. It's truthandliesfilm.us. And we encourage parents or anyone, citizens who purchase the DVD for the movie, to show it in large audiences. And we give them full permission to do that. No need for a licensing fee. Get your church, your community together and have a viewing and have a discussion afterward about how you can get involved and help make a difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So uspie.org. That's great. All right, Sherry, let's move our conversation now to one of, again, the most controversial, in my opinion, troubling arms of the U.S. governmental system. That's the Department of Education. So in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan tried in vain to dismantle the DOE, which has for a long time, as you said, been poisoned with a leftist agenda. Could you just remind our listeners first some of these serious problems with this department? Why does it need to be dismantled? Why should we be rooting for this?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, typically the nefarious pedagogies, the things that I just mentioned that are exposed in our film, they come from either grants from the federal government or regulations by the U.S. Department of Education. So the funding that they have, that they provide to states, it's largely a financial institution. They're just shuffling money around. They handle the college loan programs too. But this money originates in the states. We send our money to the federal government. They siphon off the majority of it for a huge bureaucracy to pay for. And then they send us back pennies with strings attached. And what most people don't understand is that most states only derive about 10% of their education budgets from the federal government. So, it's feasible that they don't actually need that money. And if we close the Department of Education and shift revenue collection entirely back to states, think of how much more money they would have to invest in education, because we're not siphoning off the money needed for that huge bureaucracy. So, it's a big task, but it's one that is achievable. And we developed a blueprint that demonstrates how it can be done in 5 easy steps. We're following some legislation we've seen. There was a bill introduced in Alabama by Congressman Moore that wants to close the Department of Ed, and it's offering block grants to states as a way to do it. Now, that's not what our plan suggests. We have a different approach, but we think even the block grants initially could be a helpful way to eliminate the programs. And we think programs can be eliminated one at a time and shift those programs back to the states and the funding. So we have this plan. It's well referenced, and we've actually just updated it, and we're real excited. We're going to get it republished and try to get it in the hands of every congressman, President Trump, his education secretary. We're just going to flood the country with this blueprint so we can help them to shape how this can happen so that another administration doesn't come in and just revert it all back.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of my questions for you is, how might Trump, who seems to be standing, shoulder to shoulder with us and his disdain for the Department of Education, how he might have a part to play with this. Could you tell us, Sherry, about Trump's pick for education secretary? Because I think that'll be a really important piece of this. Could she be the right person to help accomplish this?
Well, I think so. So Linda McMahon has experience with a large federal agency. She ran the Small Business Administration. She served on a state board of education. She served for many years on a college board. So she has some education background, although her critics are suggesting not enough. But for her role, because his campaign promise is to close the Department of Ed. So her role in overseeing it should be to analyze the programs and the funding and develop a plan for how this can happen. And that's why we're real hopeful that we can work with her and show her the plan that we've developed. We think it can be done program by program, and that will be her role, is to go in and do that and devise this plan to advise the president. And I think she has an excellent background for that. She ran a large business as CEO with the WWE, and she's also very loyal to President Trump. And Trump rewards loyalty, and he expects it in return. And so she was a big supporter of his in the interim between his two presidencies, and ran super PACs for him. And her and her husband donated heavily to his campaign. So, she's a loyal person, and I believe she will be loyal to him and fulfill his campaign promise or help him to do so.
Awesome stuff. Well, Sherry, clearly the work that you guys are doing is phenomenal and so very important for the future success of our children. Tell us this, just as we're about to come to the close here. How can we support the work that you all are doing at USPI?
Well, thank you for asking that, Seth. I don't get that question very often, but we would appreciate the support of your viewers. They can go again to our website, uspie.org, and they can donate there. Our organization is amazing. I mean, it's obviously God at work, because we do everything that we do with volunteers. We have volunteers all over the country. I volunteer my time. We have a board that volunteers their time. We have 2 part-time staff that total combined 30 hours a week. So that's our budget for actually, we added 1 intern just this week. But we do it on a shoestring budget, but we've been really blessed. But we have seen a lot of growth in the last couple years since we released our film. So we're really hoping to increase our budget through donations. So we'd be very pleased and honored if your viewers would consider a donation to our organization.
Awesome. uspie.org. Sherry, thanks so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to have you on the program, and I look forward to the next time that we get to do it. Folks, that's Sherry Few with US Pie. We'll be right back after this break. More financial issues. Stick with us.
It's a challenging world that we live in right now. There's a lot of corporations that frankly stand for some pretty evil things. We need to be responsible stewards of our money, putting it in companies that will support our values.
If you are interested in equipping yourself to engage in the culture, I would just highly recommend availing yourself of the Ministry of Financial Issues.
That was probably the best decision that we ever made.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. And on top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn. The donations that you give actually make a difference. Last year, 59,000 babies were saved because of what you have done and with your generosity.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Kids all across the nation are facing challenges such as isolation and loneliness and bullying, but there's still hope and the love of Jesus, and we want to bring that to those kids.
Today, Crossroads has 6 focus regions across the country. We are committed to adding 5 more regional coordinators, reaching more kids than ever before, but we can't do it without you.
God is doing something new, and we can see it in the lives of kids across America. Children are finding hope and belonging and community and purpose in the love of Jesus. The gospel is going into schools, and we need your help. We are trusting God to raise $200,000 of new funding. This funding will allow us to have 5 additional focus regions, as well as a team member who will oversee all of our regions. Please join us for this Drive for 5 in 2025. Let's place 5 new team members in cities around the nation and watch what God will do.
To help spread the love of Jesus to children across the country, go to crossroadskidsclub.com/5 in 2025.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Folks, welcome back to Financial Issues today. I hope you enjoyed that interview I did with Sherry Few. And, if you are looking for a good ministry to support that is in that same exact fight, our friends at Crossroads are just doing some great work. Obviously, a little bit different than Sherry's organization. They're more on the political level of trying to dismantle some of the higher up systems. Crossroads is on that other end of the trickle down, where they're in the public schools trying to teach kids the love of Jesus Christ. So you can go to reachourschools.com. That's reachourschools.com. Hoping to have some of the Crossroads team members on with me sometime next week to talk about some of the great work that they're doing here. So you can check them out there. Did want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I hope that you're getting excited and ready to celebrate once again the first coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And at the same time, you're preparing your heart every day for the second coming. We are living in that in-between time where we look back on the first coming and we eagerly await the second. We don't know the day or the hour, but we know that it's coming soon. So be ready. And a very Merry Christmas to all of you. Speaking of Christmas, Sam, we got a couple Christmas-themed headlines here that also have to do with our finances. What can you tell us about what's going on with holiday shopping with leftover debt? It doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Well, the headlines is basically that a lot of you people need to get your shopping and debt in order because this is ridiculous. So according to personal finance site Wallet Hub, 47% of Americans still carry their debt from last holiday season. This was part of a article shared by USA Today where they compiled a lot of different studies examining holiday shopping habits as well as what their finances look like and how they're using credit cards and other things to finance their shopping. They also shared a NerdWallet study that found that 28% of people who used credit cards to buy gifts in 2023 still haven't paid off their balances. While at the same time, Intuit Credit Karma also found that 1/3 of consumers are heading into the holiday seasons with at least $5,000 in debt.
Boy, that's tough, man. And truth be told, I mean, we do say, this is kind of ridiculous. If you are one of those people out there, seriously, who is in this situation, please do yourself a favor. Don't even think about investing right now. Get this debt paid off first. Absolutely. That's you never want to have compounding debt. If you've got debt from last year and now you're trying to figure out how to pay for Christmas this year, that's a really tough situation to be in. So focusing on getting that debt paid down, absolutely. That can be a really, really tough spot. Elsewhere, Sam, interesting, a similar headline I saw here that a lot of people are not recovering from holiday spending.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say it doesn't get much worse when you're talking about the debt, because the way people are trying to get out of this is actually by perhaps taking on more debt.
That's right.
20% also said they plan to pay their holiday expenses with credit cards this year. That's according to Talker Research. On top of that, 28% have already, or at the very least, plan to open a new line of credit to cover their holiday shopping. That study says that Americans plan on spending, on average, $559 on gifts this year.
It's a lot of gifts, for sure. A lot of money on gifts. Now, truth be told, I mean, that seems pretty par for the course. I'm trying to think of what I've spent thus far on my wife, and it's going to be near that area. Then you got kids as well. You got other people too. But boy, Sam, I think it goes without saying, Shana has talked on the show before about how there are certain times where using credit could be a use of leverage. It could be a wise thing. Purchasing a home, for example, could be a good usage of credit. Sometimes, and here could be, just one other example. If you have a medical emergency that your health insurance can't cover and you don't have the money to pay for it, obviously you have to figure out a way to pay for it. The health of whoever's involved, if it's a family member, if it's yourself, that's more important than staying out of debt. But for the most part, getting into debt can be dangerous, and especially when it's something like this. I mean, I love Christmas. I absolutely love it. But having a big, extravagant, wonderful Christmas with a lot of expensive gifts and a lot of decorations and a 12-foot tall Christmas tree that costs $300 is not worth going into debt over. It's just not. I mean, a small Christmas is so much better. Right.
Yeah, and gifts wasn't even the most expensive thing on that list. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was traveling to see your relatives and friends for Christmas was the biggest expense, clocking in, I think it was the average was around $800. So if you're compounding that together, and then there was like an additional $100 for decorations and food and things like that. So that all compounds together, and you're spending $1,500 for Christmas.
Right. Folks, Christmas can be it should be the most wonderful time of the year as you're remembering the entrance of the Lord Jesus Christ into this world to die on the cross and rise again. I think it can also be really tough financially. I think it just can be. I mean, when you're talking about throwing nostalgia into it, if you've got family that are in the area, maybe that takes away some of that travel burden. But if you got family who live across the country and they're expecting to see their grandkids, for example, at Christmas, or they're expecting to see you at Christmas, and so they're saying, hey, you know what, we want to see you. So buy a plane ticket, spend a couple $1,000s and come out and see us for Christmas. It can get really hard, folks. And I think this is really where it's so important, if you're a married couple, to be on the same page when you're talking about spending for Christmas, and to be willing to set up safeguards so that you're not going into debt. To be able to say things like, we are going to make the most of what we can afford, and what we can't afford, we're not going to try to take. We're going to buy our kids gifts that we can afford. If we need help from someone else, we'll ask for help. We're going to see who we're able to see. If we we would love to go out and travel halfway across the country to see these family members. It might not be doable for us this year. We have to be okay with that.
Or maybe you could be honest too and say, hey, that's kind of expensive, so maybe you could help chip in on the plane ticket. I'd love to come see you. I'll pay for some of it, but
that's exactly right.
Of course, plane tickets ain't cheap, and
absolutely.
Neither is Christmas.
Probably not going to get any. Not going to get any cheaper. And I think it's worth noting, folks. Sam and I are both in our early 30s, so we're speaking as young men. I have a young family. We're trying to speak about this from this perspective. You may be listening to this in your 60s or 70s, and you're retired, and you don't have too many expenses, and you're able to spend a little bit more. But it's the same idea. Whether you're 30 or whether you're 70, live within your means, and that includes at Christmas time as well. If you want some more information on this, folks, we did a Christmas spending guide on the show at the beginning of the month. It was the first live show after Thanksgiving, so I think that was December the 1st, I want to say. So check that out if you need more guidance on this. Some of the points that I made in that, just to err on the side of generosity, but also be generous without being foolish. Also, to save throughout the year, too. I know at this point, it's just a little too late in the game to save for Christmas 2024, but you can start saving for Christmas of 2025. Kind of the inverse of going into debt for next Christmas would be saving for next Christmas. That can help you stay out of that for sure. Also, quality beats quantity, and experiences make great gifts, and everything making it all about the Lord Jesus Christ, the ultimate gift. I think that's a good method to go about when we're talking about Christmas.
Yeah. I really thought the idea of saving throughout the year, treating this as an expense, is something to invest into in the future, is such wise and simple advice, Seth. It's something that, honestly, I've not done, but I'm probably going to start doing, because it's just such a simple thing to do, and it's going to save you so much headache once you get to the Christmas season, so you can actually enjoy it instead of being caught off guard by it, which is so weird that it happens to all of us, because it's the same day every single year, and yet we're still surprised every time it comes around.
I know, and I've tried to put that same kind of mindset to doing my Christmas shopping earlier in the year, and it never happens. I'm always like, you know what? I'm gonna look for Christmas presents in July. I'm not thinking about Christmas in July. I'm thinking about vacation, or I'm thinking about the summertime, or I'm thinking about work, or I'm thinking about birthdays or something like that. But Sam, I agree with you completely. I mean, it's the same mindset when we talk about our investing, is you're putting a little bit away periodically, And the way I might suggest it is, rather than, you don't need to open up a separate savings account in your bank. You can do that for sure if you want to, but it's not like you're trying to earn incredible interest on this money. This is for Christmas. Might just set aside a cookie jar and put $10 cash in there at every payday. Label it the Christmas cookie jar. It's closed. You can get an old-fashioned piggy bank, something like that. I think that'd be a really good thing to do.
It's not for Santa. It's for me.
That's right. It's exactly
because you kind of have to play Santa. So.
Yeah, and you're giving yourself the Christmas gift in advance of not having a headache when November and December rolls around. So it's good stuff. Sam, a quick question we have from Nathan here. What have we got there from Nathan?
Yeah, so Nathan, he's asking this. He's from Brandon, I believe it's Missouri. He says, how long can a stock stay under $1 before it's delisted?
Nathan, thank you for that question. So according to my research, many stock exchanges are like this, that the time frame is typically around 30 days before warnings are issued. So the official time period is right around 30 days. Once that 30-day period hits, then there's going to be a warning period that could potentially last anywhere from, I've seen, 6 months to a year. Now, it should be noted, certain stock exchanges will have different rules. For example, this past summer, there was some talk of the NASDAQ actually kind of changing its delisting process, making it a little more restrictive in terms of that kind of waiting period that comes after the 30 days. So the official amount is that 30-day period before the warnings are then issued. So Nathan, it's a good question there. By the way, folks, the type of investment Nathan is mentioning here is penny stocks. It's good to just mention now, we don't recommend this type of investment. If you're looking at it's basically a really, really cheap stock. It's speculative, but more than that, it's affordable, but it's really, really volatile. We would encourage you to avoid these altogether. I was hoping to be able to play a clip of Dan Celia when he talked about penny stocks several years ago. We're not able to have time for it today, but you can check it out. It's on YouTube, titled it's something about like, if you just type in Dan Seeley on penny stocks, you'll be able to find that there. The allure of them is they're cheap, but it's the classic example of you get what you pay for. Not a wise investment. We're talking about long-term investing. So Nathan, that's a good question there, buddy. I appreciate it. Folks, great to be with you as always today. Hope you have a blessed and wonderful day of worship on Sunday, and God willing, we'll be back together again on Financial Issues on Monday. Until then, remember, all you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with it. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.